Do y'all remember when I told you about this video right here? Let's recap, and I'll tell you at the end a wonderful update. So 2 weeks ago, I had an adoptee. And there are multiple layers to a case, right? So we get a case assigned to us. We talk to our client about, the reasons they're coming to us. This happened to be an adoptee. She was looking for mom and dad. I solved the case. I built the tree out and built it down. Figured out who mom was easily because the grandparents only had 3 girls. They didn't have any boys in the mix. So mom had to be one of them. Now, the rumor was that mom was 17 when she gave birth, but none of these girls were 17. Matter of fact, one of them was like 12, so I could eliminate that. So I knew it was down between 2. So one ended up being like 28 years old at the time of birth, and the other one would have been 24. So I said, before I decide on figuring out which one of the 2 girls is mom, let me go solve dad. So dad was actually a DNA match to the client, but he went by a screen name, which you couldn't identify. And he had no family tree attached. So we're like, all right, let's look at the other matches and see where they're from. Well, there was a match to a first cousin, also using a screen name. I'm sorry, it was a half sibling, also using a screen name and no family tree attached. All right, let's keep going. Next match is in the 200s, and they only had a family tree for their mom's side of the tree. They were looking for their dad too, which necessarily doesn't necessarily matter because, our client could be a match to their mom's side. They weren't. And then it just gets smaller and smaller from there. I can easily put cases together where, I've got just a couple matches over 100 and the rest fall under. However, this was mixed with different ethnicities from Spain and Puerto Rico. And that was really unusual because normally Puerto Rico cases, you have a lot of matches because a lot of people in Puerto Rico test and they're all related to each other. So I just wasn't going to solve it other than the fact that I knew what the screen name for dad was. So interestingly enough, this is the interesting thing. So when I was researching the 2 girls, one of them had an ex-husband with the last name that was part of this screen name. So I pull up the ex-husband, and he had a daughter with the rest of the screen name. J, middle name, and the last name. And I'm like, oh my God. So this has to be dad. So this is dad, and the one daughter that was his wife has got to be birth mom. So I say, okay, so I go tell my client all the story, all the information, and she's like, I don't think I can make this call. I cannot be rejected for a second time. I said, I really do understand. Do you want to hire our liaison services, and I'll just be your personal liaison? Because I was in the thick of it, right? I was really invested in this story. Because it's really rare that you get a mom and dad that were married. And they ended up being married and having 2 other kids that were on paper. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So she's like, yeah, let me just hire you. So I get on the phone and I call mom. And mom's like, first I left a message, mom didn't call. So I call back the next day. She's like, who's this again? Oh, did you call me last night? And I'm like, yes, I called you last night. She's like, well, listen, I'm busy with my husband. He's sick and I ain't got time for this. And I'm like, did you have a baby on such and such date? Just tell me that. She's like, no, what date again? No. She says, I did have a son, but it was after that date and we've been reunited. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. Well, the birth father is your ex-husband, such and such. I said, and the mom's DNA is coming back to your family. I said, do you know if your ex-husband had a thing with your sister? Because it's between you and your sister. And she's like, look, I ain't got time for this. She just starts screaming, like going nuts on me. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. I'm trying to be as calming as possible. I said, look, you can call me back. Take a little bit of time to absorb what I'm asking. And you can call me back when it's better for you. And she's like, I gotta go. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And she says, don't call me back again. Don't ever call me. I'm like, I will respect your request. Thank you. So I hung up and I'm like, that's okay. I respect your request. Look, we don't know what birth moms went through. when they had to place the baby for adoption. And I do know the story now, but I didn't know it then, and I'm just not going to judge a mom. We can give you what your answer is, but we can't guarantee a relationship, right? So we want to give mom that personal space that she needs. But on the other hand, the client's entitled to at least make contact with their siblings, right? So she's got full siblings. These are not just half siblings. These are full siblings. And so I said, even though mom says no, do you want me to reach out to your siblings? And, I can also call your aunt and ask your aunt if by chance she's the mother. And she's like, yeah, make all those calls. It's absolutely fine. So pretty much just going down the list of people to call. And I'm not trying to blow this mom up, but mom is denying that she's the mom. So I'm second guessing my work. I'm like, did her husband have sex and have a baby with the sister? Right? So, and this has happened, by the way. So I called the sister, and the sister's like, when was that baby born again? She's like, that is my sister's baby. She's just not copping to it. I said, well, she said her husband's really sick. And she says, he's not sick. He's got money. And it's her third husband. She doesn't want him to know that she did it twice. I said, what do you mean twice? She says, she told you about her son that she placed for adoption. She did. She also had this little girl. So here's the thing. Mom had 3 children in California. Baby number 1 in California. My client, baby number 2, on the East Coast. I have to be careful, on the East Coast. And then immediately went back to California and had baby number 3, who she put up for adoption, and the entire family knew about it, which was a boy. And then baby number 4, like right away. Like she's popping these babies out every 13 months. It was like it had to be hard on her body to be constantly pregnant and popping out babies like that. Anyway. So what I find out from the sister, so my client's aunt, is that she was married to this man who's the dad, and obviously they were struggling at the time, right? And he and his mother decided that they shouldn't have those children at that time. And so that's how the babies got placed for adoption. And the client that I worked with was a black market adoption. So let me tell you how that black market adoption worked. She went to the doctor. So it was prearranged. They found a couple that was going to take the baby after the baby was born. So what they ended up doing is this woman went to the doctor as the mother that adopted the baby. Used her insurance card and everything. Went to the hospital like that, and had the baby like that. So there was never an original birth certificate. The couple that adopted her were the original parents according to every law and insurance clause that there was. And I'm like, wow, learn something new every day. That's interesting. But anyway, so here's the end of the story. I got confirmation from the aunt, who was very loving about it and said that she would love to have contact, but only once her sister, admits to it. And then I made contact with the half-sister, who knew nothing about it, who contacted the mom, and the mom called me back and said, now you're calling my children? I said, yes, ma'am. Your secret is not ours to keep. Your children have a full sister that they do not know about, and they're entitled to have the knowledge of that and decide if they want to make the relationship. All right, so end of the story. The half-sister makes contact with my client. Everything is going beautifully. She's giving my client photos and everything of the mom, the dad, all the half-siblings, and mom ends up calling and confessing. And, of course, my client's going to forgive her. She just melted, and everything ended up being okay. So moral of the story is give people grace, don't rush to judgment, and give them a minute to think about what's happening. So I was in no rush to get the mom to admit to anything. We were going to give her time, but her daughter ended up coming in clutch and putting it all together. Hope you're having a great weekend. So I got a beautiful email from our client that we're talking about here in this video. And she said that I told you in the last video, Mom came around a little bit and her heart just melted, right? Well, Mom came around more. There were little bumps along the way, right? So Mom wasn't like over the moon happy, but she came along. So Mom's husband did pass away, unfortunately. We're so sorry to hear that. But in the meantime, our client has met with her sister, both of her brothers, so the one that was raised by the mother and the one that was put up for adoption. They have developed a very strong, loving sibling relationship, and Mom just came to visit all of them together. So they just had a huge family reunion between Mom and all 4 kids. So let's drop some red hearts in the comments to just wish them well and keep the love flowing.